Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are managing to find some semblance of peace during these very trying times. Now, the subject for this video is going to be the state of the media in today's age, which I think is absolutely abysmal, if I'm being completely honest. We're going to discuss how seemingly every news outlet on television, as well as a vast majority of online outlets as well, including social media, are dedicated to furthering a very specific narrative. And I do believe that narrative, the ultimate goal behind it, is to undermine and subvert the Western cultural values and principles of freedom and individual liberty. And why I think so many outlets are actually echoing this kind of narrative is largely due to the illusion of choice when it comes to the consumption of media within the United States, as upwards of 90% of media outlets are actually owned by 6 major media conglomerates, and we're going to discuss those today. Delve a little bit deeper into the narrative that they're pushing. I'll show some examples, and let's get into it. All right, so the first point that I would like to really highlight is the illusion of choice when it comes to the consumption of media within the United States. Now, upwards of 90% of the media is actually owned by 6 major media conglomerates, as I stated before, 4 of which actually own most of the news networks and stations within the country, one of which would be Comcast, which owns CNBC, NBC Universal, MSNBC, and Vox Media. Next, we have National Amusements, which owns Viacom, CBS, MTV, and Spike. Then we got Disney, which owns ABC, ESPN, Vice, and ABC Press. Now, I know ESPN is mainly sports, but let's be completely honest, they've been getting pretty political lately too. And finally, we have AT&T, which owns CNN, Time, Life, and Time Life, with an honorable mention to News Corp, which owns the Fox News networks. Originally, I didn't really want to include them just because, for the most part, they tended to kind of stay away from this narrative. But, I mean, if we're being completely honest, a lot of the spokes individuals over at Fox have been echoing this kind of narrative as well. So I think it's fair to at least mention them when it comes to the illusion of choice in this regard. All right, and now we're going to kind of delve into the overarching narrative currently being promulgated by the media in terms of like manipulating details or facts surrounding unfolding events and situations. And I think the best way to exemplify that would be to highlight how the media has covered the COVID pandemic since it started back in May. Now, if any of you remember, the initial suggestion that was being pushed was to flatten the curve, was to do a 2-week lockdown of the entire nation in order to stem the flow of increasing infection rates. And we did that. And lo and behold, somehow or another, it still spread. We were told to wear masks in order to do the same thing, and it still spread. We were told to shut our businesses' doors and not allow them to conduct the business they were built to do or to be run the way that we believe them to be run in order to stem the infection rate, and it still spread. I believe we're starting to see a little bit of a pattern here, both in the falsehoods that the media pushes onto the people, as well as their proclivity to cast down and criticize anyone with a differing perspective or opinion that doesn't immediately go along with the status quo that they're trying to push on everyone. It really does seem like a massive assault on common sense and critical thought. You can't question what the media pushes, because if you do, they'll just label you as insane or anti-scientific, even if you take your position and root it in the fact that the survivability rate of this disease is 99.9%. And if you're over 65, which would mean that you're part of the vulnerable population, it's still 99.7%. So like even looking at these numbers, the reaction that we have warranted this disease is absolutely unfounded. Absolutely. It makes no rational sense to lock down the entire economy, the entire country, in the name of stopping the spread of a virus that doesn't kill the vast majority of people that it infects. And like, even now, they're really focusing on case numbers. The cases are going up. What about the deaths? Like, I think that's pretty prevalent information to be telling people, if I'm being completely honest. Like, Yeah, cases could go up, but if everyone is still surviving most of the cases, is it really something to warrant such a massive reaction towards? Ah, but yeah, I feel like that kind of highlights the narrative that the media is pushing right now, and it's not just the media; it's social media as well, which we're absolutely going to get into. And speaking of which, we might as well do so now. So, social media has definitely shown its political leanings lately, and the outright censorship and subversion of very select political alignments. We could look at examples such as like Stefan Molyneux, Carl Benjamin, Tommy Robinson, who have just been outright banned from certain platforms, such as Twitter. And these individuals aren't even controversial. They're not trying to make insane statements. All they were really doing is promoting critical thought in regards to the unfolding situations and asking questions towards the status quo that is currently being pushed on the population at large. And now social media has a very blatant tendency to undermine the credibility of influential figures such as Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, especially in regards to the current election situation that's unfolding, in which they are in support of investigating claims of voter fraud and statistical irregularities when it comes to counting the ballots and tallying up the numbers. Now, you could tell this is just a blatant bias because if you look at examples such as like Kathy Green, who has tweeted and retweeted a photo of her literally holding a beheaded effigy of Donald Trump, she still has her Twitter account and is still very much so in support of the political left and anti-Trump. It just, like, the bias couldn't be more clear in my mind. And this is ultimately culminating in a very deep division being driven into the United States population, and it is adding fuel to the fire in terms of this hyper-polarized political climate. And I honestly think that's kind of their goal. Their goal is to subvert and undermine the principal values and fundamental liberties that Western culture is largely founded upon. Because if you watch my previous video, we kind of go over the Great Reset. They can't usher in a Great Reset if the populations are still fervently in belief and support of those principles and those values. There's no way to bring about a monumental change if the people that you're trying to force that change on are more inclined to support the previous system than the one that you're trying to usher in. So it makes complete sense that they would be pushing so hard in order to twist and manipulate the way that people are perceiving things so that they'll just kind of jump on the bandwagon and go along with the status quo, even if that status quo is verifiably false and completely antithetical to what is really happening. Like their tangible grasp on reality has weakened to such an extent that you don't have to be very smart in order to see it. Like, it's truly common sense, which I understand is not super common anymore, especially when it comes to the political left. But like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to draw these conclusions or to start asking the right questions so that you just undermine and expose the truth of the matter. Like, it's absolutely insane. So I don't necessarily know where any of this goes. I think we are on the precipice of a very dark time in humanity's history. We kind of go through these cycles of we make incredible advancements, we build a very stalwart and strong civilization, and then somewhere along the line something happens within the population and we regress to a pretty drastic extent. And I think we are at the crossroads of such a situation. And I think it's ultimately up to us as the people of the world and of the United States, because let's be honest here, we're the last bastion of freedom in the entire world. Europe has fallen, Australia has fallen, so we're it. And it's up to us to decide whether or not we kind of want to go along with the status quo, or if we want to reject it completely and further double down on the principles and liberties that have birthed such a prosperous and free society in order to usher in a new age of prosperity and freedom for us and the generations to come. I think it's very important that we understand and grasp the kind of situation that we are currently living in, and take the necessary steps we need to ensure that the outcome that comes from it is one that is truly beneficial for both our generation and the generations to come. But if you like this message, go ahead and like and comment down below. Feel free to follow my channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell in order to be alerted for when my next upload is. And do please share the video if you like this message, because I'm not going to be buying any ads or anything to try and like artificially inflate the influence or reach of these videos. I'm not going to be asking for call outs or anything like that. So if you like the video, please share it, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.